Herzlich willkommen zum Afrika für Allmanns Podcast. Very welcome to all of our English-speaking listeners and our global audience. So today, wie ihr wisst, bilingual, ne? Wir wechseln rechts, links, Englisch, Deutsch. And as we have told you in our intro, this is going to be predominantly an English-speaking format. We're going to switch in some German words in case we cover the German topics. But for today, we're going to cover tourism in Namibia. It's a very interesting topic. Maybe just to give you guys a little head start into it. I come from Germany. I've been in Namibia now for the second time as a friend visiting my good friend Chandre, as you might know. But the normal introduction into Namibia is, of course, predominantly for Germans from a touristic point of view. And maybe Chandre, just to give us a bit introduction of whom we have the pleasure today to interview on this interesting topic.
Thank you. Well, we have Mr. Nrupesh Soni today. Welcome, Nrupesh. And we are excited to have a conversation with you about the tourism sector in Namibia, with a special focus also on the German market as one of Namibia's biggest tourism markets today. And yeah, Frederick, back to you.
Maybe just to give us a little introduction, what is your work in tourism in Namibia, and overall, what is your perception of the German importance for the Namibian tourism industry?
I started the Namibia Travel and Tourism Forum 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, to look at new ways of doing tourism in Namibia, especially overseas, Europe. Germany is one of the predominant market in Namibia, as you see, the tourists, the signage, everything. But it was also a way to show the tourist that there is easier and better ways to get information on Namibia. There's a lot more to Namibia than what you just find on certain websites. And I think it has been a very good learning curve during COVID it gave us time to realign and restructure a few of the things. Yes. And I think it has been great so far.
Okay. But what would you say, now that you have this platform, it's an open platform, right?
Yes.
I'm assuming. What would you say has been its impact directly on tourism as in these couple of years in its existence?
I think if you look at, in general in Africa, whenever you travel, if any country you look at in Africa, you first search on Google or whatever websites and say, look, I want to find out more information. Yeah. And you rarely find official info that's updated, or private info that actually gives you the whole overview, and it's usually biased towards their offerings and stuff. And the way we wanted to structure the forum was to say, okay, you know what, it will help not only the industry here, but also the tourists to get the right information, the tour guides and the companies to get right access to the other markets, India, China, Germany, all the big markets, America, South America, and find a newer way to do things and open up. And it has been a massive impact. I mean, in 2.5 years, it's one of the most followed tourism pages in Africa, which says a lot. We are on all the platforms. About a month ago, Facebook also gave us @Namibia because nobody is using it. And they said, no forum can use it to promote Namibia globally. So it's facebook.com/Namibia, which is a big way to market it to the younger people. It might not be as relevant to some people, but it's like getting Namibia.com. You have the main focus. And along with that, the views, the engagement has been very big. In the last year and a half, I think it's been over 14 million engagements on Facebook, YouTube, and all the channels combined, which is quite big, 14 million engagements. And it includes Google My Business and things like that. But predominantly coming back to the industry, the way it has helped is the younger upcoming tourism companies in Namibia, who were never represented by associations or any groups. They never had a voice in the industry. And we're talking about 90% of the companies registered in Namibia in tourism. And the forum gave them a way to channel their requests, their concerns, get more data out of the industry to ask, how is the road here?
Yes.
Just as a curiosity, if you're a tour guide or a tour company from Swakopmund and you want to ask somebody, how is the road in Solitaire today because of the rains? Now you immediately get assistance. And that never used to happen.
So it's a network that's able to communicate.
It's a network that's able to communicate, and obviously it has been a big mind opener for a lot of people who didn't know how to use technology for the right purposes.
But that's interesting. So you also have a data background. So I think you're also the right person to ask questions on that matter. Just maybe to give a young German or young Namibian an idea of the quantity. Is there some public data to say maybe how many tourists per year come into Namibia, or even on the reduction within Germans? Is there any shareable information?
Well, I don't think. We share what we get. Yeah. Ministry, since we work with the ministry quite closely, ministry gets their information through the database.
Sorry, this is the Ministry
of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, who gets the data. Okay. MEFT. Yes. MEFT gets the data from Home Affairs. Okay. From the entry-exit.
Yes.
Unfortunately, some official entities don't share the data, which is very important for things to change. NTB, for example, it's a state-owned enterprise, but they get all the data from all accommodations.
What is NTT?
Namibia Tourism Board. NTP.
Okay. So they're advocate for like.
They are the official entity, state-owned enterprise in charge of tourism regulation to regulate the industry. So every accommodation has to pay levies.
But it's state-owned. It's a state-owned.
Okay. Yeah. So now every accommodation has to pay levies, and in the form they have to actually give the statistics to say, so many people from Germany, so many people from whichever countries stayed with us for so many days. That information is not being shared, not to the industry, not even to the ministry. So the ministry data comes from people from the borders. A lot of times it's not complete data because they have to manually count the forms. And it might be business travelers that are counted as tourists sometimes. So that information sharing is not happening. While Hospitality Association, who is in charge of some members in the industry, they get occupancy rates from 30 of the members, from the 200 members or 250 members. And then NTB has 3,000 members registered. So 1% should not be a statistic occupancy rate. It shouldn't be a national statistic officially.
So you're basically guessing in the gray a lot of times. Yeah?
Yes.
It must be quite hard then to actually identify the real impact of country, of destination, of diversifying.
Absolutely, and I think we need to learn from the European countries, Western countries, to say, this is how they collect data. Let's look at that. Let's open up data. Data should not be proprietary.
Yes.
And this kind of data is more for benefit of the sector than for themselves.
So one question, is it true to assume that, our anecdotal evidence was the trip to Lüderitz last time, where there were some German also who were traveling in the south, but none of them actually was at the end in Lüderitz, but they were before on a ranch, or technically nobody went to the cities in Namibia. Is it true to say that the tourists who do come, let's just keep all those numbers in the gray for sake of information, what do they actually do predominantly here?
It depends how they come in. Like, there are lots of tourists who come in with their own tour guides, and then we never know where they go, what they do. Most people, they want to go Etosha, Swakopmund, Sossusvlei. That's like the big three.
Can you, just for an outsider, are those in the national parks or what exactly?
Yeah, Etosha is the national park. It's one of the largest national parks. Sossusvlei is the dunes, the desert, and it's also a World Heritage Site. And then Swakopmund is the town at the coast, which is also predominantly German heritage.
Yes.
So I think this triangle is what most people travel. What happens is also sometimes they go through South Africa and they continue the tour here. But again, then we don't know who they come with. A lot of times it's happened when the tour guide just lands here, picks them up at the border. A tour guide from South Africa will land here, pick them up from the border. They conclude the tour here without us ever knowing the impact of those tourists to the economy.
Yeah. No, I want to go into that, but Frederick is very privileged. He has an Namibian friend.
On that point, I agree. I agree on that point.
Friend that can set us up and make sure he has a place to stay, knows where to go, what to do, and so on. A benefit of having a local friend. But if there's a young German tourist, right, a young person that says, I want to go check out Namibia, I may be traveling with a budget, I'm a student, or I just recently graduated, it's my first job, I don't have that much money to spend necessarily. What are the avenues available for such a young person to be able to get hold of enough information about tourist destinations in Namibia to be able to plan out a trip for themselves, for instance, without going to a big company or to a tour guide to be able to...
Which is also outdated, right? In our age, normally people don't use big tour guide, full trips. How would you do it then?
One of the things I've always kind of talked about here and told a lot of Namibian companies, especially small companies, I said, don't market yourself as a tour guide or a tour agent or a booking agent. Because the mentality is, if you're an agent, you're going to charge commission.
Yeah.
I always say, tell them you are a tour advisor, that you will help them plan the tour. The bigger problem here is the pricing structure. Booking.com. I don't know if you probably use it all the time.
Yes. I was nearly going to use it for Swakop. We stick to Airbnb in the end, but
now Airbnb is it's illegal here in a way because you need to be registered with NTB for Airbnb, but they don't have the manpower to actually regulate it because from the 36,000 rooms on Airbnb from Namibia, that's how many we have, only 4,000 are registered. And again, it's very difficult to manage that. And one can learn from other companies rather than just banning Airbnb because that doesn't work. We haven't gone that far yet to open up the discussions. But the Booking.com and Expedia issue is another large one where a lot of times people have asked me, Nrupesh, what do you recommend? It's random people or they email the forum saying, we are coming from South America and what do we recommend? Yeah. I said, look, Booking.com charges 17 to 15% commission, which goes back to America. Doesn't even stay in Africa.
17 to 50?
15 to 17.
15 to 70, okay.
But
that's still a high. Yes, for multi-thousand euro trips.
I'm saying, look, use a local agent who charges 10% commission. At least you're getting cheaper than Booking.com
and the money stays
here. Yeah. But it's part of awareness. How do we train people to kind of market it that way? To say, look, we are cheaper than Booking.com. Don't use Booking.com. You're actually taking Africa money, not even Namibia, Africa money back to America. Yes. 15% of tourism booking goes back to America. And it's something which has to be discussed on a larger scale.
Especially since it's such a big sector, right?
Exactly.
I mean, from what I saw, at least, it has, in the private sector, one of the largest impacts on GDP.
Absolutely. And this is where we need to now look at new ways to get bookings through. Market yourself to say we are cheaper than Booking. It's not the fear that Booking.com cannot sue you for marketing. But Booking.com also tells you as an accommodation not to market it less than market. So there's a lot of things we need to kind of train and create awareness around in the local industry. I'm not talking about the bigger companies. I'm talking about the 80% medium, smaller companies who need to grow.
Interesting. What about local tourism? I mean, maybe you as an example, Chandre, what was the first time you actually traveled Namibia or saw like any of the, let's say, classical TripAdvisor recommendations?
Well, I think we had obviously we were privileged enough to have field trips at school, but even beyond that, during the local tourism is Lekker campaign, I definitely made use of the discounts.
What exactly is this?
It's a campaign that was started during COVID, and I think
I was one of the two people who kind of started it, and it's it was it made a big impact in the mindset. Initially, when we opened it, a lot of people said, no, but local companies never gave us discounts. Why should we support them now in the time of crisis? And my discussion was, you don't go into, it is a group, private group, which already has, I think, over 30,000 people now. And I said, if you want to complain about a Mercedes or BMW, don't go into the showroom to complain. You can protest from outside, but don't go inside and tell people not to buy it. It's the same with the group. I said, leave the group, advocate outside. But this is a new initiative. I don't know what happened before COVID. I don't care. We need to look at new ways. Eventually, everybody had good deals, like really good deals. There were nice lodges for $300 a night, campsites for $100 a night because it would just put food on somebody's table for that week. And it changed the mindset, which has now kind of grown into when the tourism revives, how do we deal with the price differences? When locals ask for price discount, or expect it to be discounted. They don't understand that lodges have to make profits. Yeah. A lot of lodges cost millions of dollars, but it's also people don't call and ask, why? How much discount are you giving me?
Yes.
Instead of saying, I want 50% discount. That's not the right way to actually negotiate. Yes. You just call them and say, I'm from Windhoek, I want some discount, can I get it? There are enough lodges to, who will give you. But to expect it is also not the right way. And these lodges are also struggling with finding the right balance to offer local prices and foreign prices to say, look, because we need to make sure that locals also see the country, we need to have some rooms available or last minute bookings and things like that. But it's a discussion that has to happen still.
So there's a big potential still. I mean,
there is definitely a big potential on that because a lot of accommodations are not still fully booked and they do definitely cater for locals.
Speaking of accommodations, there's this phenomenon here that I've always wondered when some sort of reform is going in, there is this per person charging instead of per room charging.
I know you're going deep, eh?
Yeah. No, because it's a real thing. thing, and I think there was a discussion at some point amongst Namibians about this, that you end up paying, one person, for instance, decides to go stay in a double room, and then they pay a cheaper rate. But as soon as you bring a second person with you to live in that same double room, especially for families that go on
Then
holiday,
it's,
the husband and the wife both have to pay a separate amount,
Wow.
separately, basically on their own for that.
It's yeah.
Does this perhaps not promote anti-competitiveness opposed to
I
our
don't-
neighbors in the region that might offer per room prices? Per
I think
night?
a lot of SADC countries offer per person as well, but considering the fact that every hotel in Europe doesn't do that, most hotels don't. I don't think America does that. I've never seen it in my travels. I stayed in China for ages, and I've never seen it until Namibia. And it is a bit odd because I'm like, okay, I'm going with my wife now, 2,000 per person per night. Now suddenly it's 3,800. I'm like, an extra bed is going to cost me so much.
Which water usage per person is going on there?
And I'm like, it also becomes difficult to calculate. I've got 3 kids, and now I have to
exactly.
okay,
I mean,
2 are under 12, and 1 is over 12, but under 18, and now you have to calculate everything, and it does become a bit of an issue. There are a few lodges and hotels already who have started per room.
Okay.
It's understandable if you say per room and per person breakfast. That's how it should be. You're going to pay the same amount to clean the room for the housekeeping. Everything is the same. It's the food cost that's more, literally. And I think, why not? A lot of lodges don't even provide the other amenities like toothbrushes and stuff unless you ask for it, which is also norm in Europe.
yes.
And so I'm like, what else are you spending the money on then? If it is double. So.
But interesting thing, since we speak about spending money, because before I came this time, I was also talking to some other Germans who, if they had contact in Namibia, for most of them it was either them or some relative who had done like some safari tour or some lodge experience here in Namibia. And I was always wondering, it sounded always very high end. I mean, that might be my perception to it, and that might be also a bit biased there. But is it true that you need actually a big budget to do like the classical, let's say, lodge or safari experience in Namibia, or which kind of budgets are required for, let's say, a German tourist who wants to experience this unique beauty?
I think it depends on the tour you are looking for. Do you want somebody to arrange everything? You land here and it's all taken care of? Or do you want to explore? A lot of younger middle-aged couples want to explore. They want that freedom of being able to sleep one night somewhere. They don't like the second night, or they can move somewhere else. And that's what more couples, more families are looking for now than previously. So I think it's important for them to know that Namibia caters to everyone. Backpackers right on to fly-in safaris that cost ridiculous amount a night. There's a lodge just outside Windhoek. I saw the price. It was, I'm not joking, it was about 15,000 euros a night.
15?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
And it is. There are places like that. I don't know how they get the booking. I don't know, but it exists.
I hope 2 persons though, eh?
Per person. Per person. So there are hunters who come in a lot, and they pay a lot for those kind of accommodations. And so there is a lot to kind of look at and understand who wants to market where. There should be a space for everyone. A small upcoming Namibian company doesn't necessarily even want to target Europe. They want to target other parts of Africa. They have a lot of rich travelers from Africa. So why don't we look at other Africans also as tourists and offer them something different? But it's the perception that white person is tourist and others are not. Also needs to change. I guess I'm jumping right into the...
but how do we deal with that perception, especially amongst our local tour operators and the individuals that are specifically in charge of marketing the country? Because like you said, there's always this hyper focus on marketing Namibian tourism to the European market, German market specifically. A lot of resources are put into there. How do we get that paradigm shift to be able to look at other markets, whether it's the South American market, the Asian market, or the African market, to attract a more diverse group of tourists?
I think the mindset needs to change from us looking at somebody telling us where to go. And we need to start exploring. We need to look at numbers. We need to look at data of the other countries. Look at Nigeria. They spent, just before 2020, before COVID, 2019, Nigeria spent $10 billion on outbound travel. I mean, but what is the perception here? Yeah, we don't want Nigerian tourists.
Become scared.
Why? Yeah, so why? These are the issues we need to tackle. It's the mindset. Again, not to blame an entity, but NTB, who's supposed to be regulatory, spending so much time on marketing to what benefits some of their members.
Yes.
We need to look at changing the narrative, because what happens now is 2021, there was this presentation by NTB where they're the top 50 countries to look at. India wasn't on the top 50. And I'm not saying it because I'm from there originally, but it's just that it's a 1.4 billion people, one of the largest travel markets. How do you not have them in the top 50 countries to target? And then sometimes, it's, if you look at numbers, Germany is 0.98% of the world population.
Yes.
It's not even 1%. Why do we spend 80% of our marketing resources to that country?
I think before we go into the German history, I mean, that's a very good. No, I want to go in that deeper. But let's just before we take a little break there. One question I have in general though is: what do tourists of Namibia maybe differentiate from other tourists? Is there a lot of change? Like, are the tourists coming in and out, or is it more or less like a consistency of people coming back every year? Because my perception, at least, is that if there's German tourists, they tend to have a thing here. They tend to have a niche that they found with Namibia. And I was wondering, is that in general with Namibian tourists? Or?
It is. I mean, you're talking about the foreign tourists.
Yes, exactly.
So a lot has changed with COVID. I help a lot of my friends who are in tourism. I sometimes help them with marketing strategies. And one of the things that has been consistent over the last year and a half is 90% or so big bookings are repeat customers, or at least referrals through somebody who's been here. Cold marketing has to change because people are not confident enough yet to travel. One of the things we did predict last year, which happened, was no off-season. Usually November, December, January is a bit off-season, but this time everybody was full. People travel because people want to just travel because it's something they call revenge tourism. And if you've heard the word, it's a big thing around the world now. People are taking revenge against COVID. So they're just traveling.
Okay. No, I get it.
And it's happening in Namibia. We could see it during the December holidays. Definitely, every place was booked.
Yeah.
Cool. Then I would say for the moment, that's very nice. And we go to the German topic right after the break.
All right, cool, thanks.
Mit uns bist du on air. Pool Podcast Agency. Deine Stimme in der Welt.
Welcome back, guys. Just to get started with, I think, the most interesting aspect of the moment before we break. We already had a little chat about it in the pause. For the sake of intellectual honesty, do I understand you guys correct that you say that the tourism system benefits asymmetrically the German tourist industry?
Yes, because even if it's not directly, there's a big problem in the way the old structures were set up, where local companies then have agents overseas who charge a lot of money, commission structures need to be, opened up a bit so that younger guys come in. But the biggest issue is that the agents don't want to reduce the prices. A lot of the local companies have offices in Germany or private accounts, and I'm not going to name names, but I've got enough information that I've seen over the last 2-3 years where something we often refer to as leakages in the industry, where entities here or people here have private accounts in Germany. They ask the tourists to pay all the money there.
So who profits from that? I mean, is it the
nobody in Namibia?
Okay.
Because what happens is all the costs come here, or maybe he's even making money here. He's just paying the suppliers done. So everything is then ending up back in Germany.
Basically, the profits don't go into the local economy. The profits of the business model essentially goes back into Germany.
Yeah. But to some extent, as a tourist, then, sorry to interrupt, but as a tourist, you don't even pay for water then.
Yeah.
Everything is catered to. You paid for it in Germany.
But then it's not an issue of Germany, because Germans do have, I think, a very high demand for Namibian tourism. I mean, just take the stability of Namibia within Africa as a very relatively safe country to go to. There's a lot of, I mean, I can go to the Apotheke and buy my Ratio Farm products here in German language, no lack of infrastructure. I actually did that today, yes. And so I think it's justified to have a very large demand into Namibia. We can go now into the history and everything, how that gets created. But once there's a demand, why should the market not focus on the largest demand influx?
But it's also, who do the local companies entrust to do the marketing? It's Namibia Tourism Board. Namibia Tourism Board only has one office overseas, in Germany.
In Germany. Mm.
They do all the marketing just for Germany. When they come here on the familiarity trips, just look at the LinkedIn page. I mean, you can see how they've structured it. Any groups that come in familiarity trips, 20 German agents who come here, look at who networks with them here. There's no local black company in the photos. And I'm saying it as it is because it's very obvious that these opportunities need to trickle down through NTB. Nobody even knows it's happening until it's posted that we did it last week.
So it's more of an inefficient structure around it. It could be
Absolutely,
also
yeah.
Switzerland or Canada. I mean,
But
it's
it
just
could
the
be,
sake
it's
that...
more of an access thing, and then if I'm hearing you correctly, right? And then that's really what I want to lead into the next question or the next point of this discussion. This industry, the tourism industry, in general in Namibia, how accessible is it to young people? And I mean in every form, whether it's those who start businesses, whether it's a tour operator that studied hospitality studies at one of the local universities or even internationally. How easy is it for young people to be able to access the information, but beyond that, access the opportunities to get into the industry?
It's very difficult. It's very closed off by...
How big is the industry in terms of workforce?
Industry in 2019 was supposedly generating 19 billion Namibian dollars. And it was projected to grow.
Yeah.
And people-wise, it was 50,000 Namibians directly in tourism, 130,000 indirectly. It's a massive industry.
But relatively to the population, it's a very large employer.
Yeah, I mean, look at the supply chain, look at the value chain, drivers, tires, everything links to tourism somehow, or agriculture, or mining. And one of the things we don't realize is the gap between the younger companies and older companies is growing so much because they refuse to transfer information and the knowledge. Mm-hmm. What's happening now is a lot of small companies, they have no idea what's happening. They don't know. They only have one understanding, which is NTB markets for us. Mm-hmm. Now, 6,000 companies have paid NTB to register. There are 23 categories, tour operators, tour facilitators, there are different categories. Now, they entrust NTB to market it, while NTB goes out and only gives list of 10 companies or 30 companies from the 6,000, even 100 companies to the other side. Look at the ITB, for example, which is happening now. A booth in ITB, 3 meter by 3 meter.
ITB is?
ITB is the International Tourism Expo, which happens in Germany every year. It's one of the biggest expos in the world for tourism. It's happening
by
in
0.8%.
Huh? Yeah.
Not so bad after all.
Yeah. But what happens is now, a booth by itself is 90,000 for a 3 meter by 3 meter.
Euros or
Namibian dollars.
Okay.
But NTB is charging 70,000 for a seat, just a chair and a table, to share the NTB booth.
Wow.
Because they don't want people to know how to directly get the booths, because NTB wants to be involved. They don't want anybody else to do exhibitions overseas, which is actually not right, because we need to be providing information like there's an exhibition in Malaysia, Hong Kong, wherever it is. Here's the information, here's the exhibition, go do it. Because if you actually find out the prices are not that expensive, we make it expensive because of the way we control the information.
But look, sorry.
So look at the car, just as an example, car rental association. It's called Karan. In Namibia, we have NTB has 557 to be exact. Car rental and shuttle companies registered by NTB. Car rental association has 20 companies. BNB association has 11 companies. That's it. And
those are official associations in Namibia.
They're not official because they're not even registered at BIPOR anywhere. It's just group of people saying,
come together.
We've got an and we can start, let's say, Namibia Germany Travel Association. Nothing stops it. And this is kind of a loophole because you don't misrepresent the industry by saying you're the official voice. And this is what needs to change. This is one of the reasons I made the forum, to open up the information and say that, young graduates, they don't get opportunities because tour guides are not regulated. So there's so many problems in it.
Let's look ahead. I mean, this is something, we are not in charge of the government, so it's nothing that we can
But
change.
I think it's important that we set that context there. Are you saying...
I'm not saying it's wrong to set the context.
Regulation issue from maybe, let's say, a legislative point of view. Is there a regulation issue that leads to these loopholes where people like these associations can decide to come together and monopolize information?
In a way, yes, because it has happened before NTB was formed. They already had regulation, the associations. So some associations have been there since independence, and that structure needs to kind of change. Or people misusing the structure for themselves need to leave and let younger people come in. There's an example. There's so many examples, but look at the tour guide association. 40 people, not one black Namibian in it. And who is the one who actually meets the tourists at the airport, takes them around, drops them back? It's the tour guide. Who is the one who suffered the most in the COVID pandemic? Tour guide. But NTB has no listing of tour guides. NTA, the Namibian Training Authority, who taught the good tour guides, doesn't want to even give out a list of tour guides who are qualified through them. So how do they get opportunities if there's no list like these are the 100 tour guides, Namibians who qualified? And this is where the problems of information flow come in, where if we don't open it up, we cannot benefit the younger guys because all the opportunities, information still goes to those bigger companies.
But using that inefficiency, I mean, just for the sake of it, let's accept it for a moment. Which advice would you then give to interested, either, let's say, young Namibians who want to pursue local tourists, or maybe a young German who's now catching up through our vivid conversations, interest into Namibia? How can they, despite of such an inefficient system, how can they get an authentic experience here and maybe work also on being part of the solution?
The working part of the solution is providing more training, which is what is most needed.
I mean, not the customer. How can the customer act? I mean,
oh, you're talking about the customer.
The customer as a tourist.
As a tourist, if a customer is coming here, most important is network. Don't stay in your own group. I mean, I would always recommend Namibia is safe. You know, you can drive for hours. There's no serious crimes, or there have never been crimes. Very rarely, compared to all other countries, locally in many European countries, Germany, there are places you don't walk at night. So it's those kind of crimes are everywhere. And if you look at the attacks or issues against tourists, crimes against tourists, it's never been serious. If it has been
given
serious,
that they don't go to the big cities, I mean, then of course,
absolutely.
The largest crime doesn't really.
Yeah, and then also it's not serious against the tourists, that their life is not threatened. You don't have tourists being killed or hijacked like it happens in other countries. South Africa, I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah, but so that is one of the things that doesn't happen here. So we must promote it that way, that it's safe to go to township. It's not, it's not a scary place. It's not just riddled with crime that you think it is.
No.
And this is where, if I tell you, let's go to Katatura or wherever, a big car wash. Yeah. It's okay, let's go. We don't worry about it.
We did it. Also, remember in Lüderitz? I mean, there were informal settlements. At the end, my biggest fear was my belly after eating street food. I might not process it well, but that was by far the highest.
Yeah, so
I hoped you broke that.
I've ratio farm, so just in case, Apotheke has me covered there, so don't worry about it.
So I think that is what we need to convey to the tourists, that it is a safe place, regardless of language barrier, regardless of race. We don't have that discrimination here that somebody will come up to you and say, oh, but you're white, or you Indian, or you something, Chinese, you're killing our rhinos. That doesn't happen here.
True.
And I think we need to take that and use it for our advantage, regardless of the language. We are safe.
And young people might not be doing tours with such big tour guides anymore, right? Is it not maybe also an old form? And that those not maybe also old customers as tourists who are basically keeping the system alive?
Yes, but I mean, if you see the flow of the tourists now, it's a lot more younger demographics that's coming in. Yes. The biggest challenge we have is information in terms of signages. When you come in at the airport, nobody tells you, here's a list of guidelines. If you travel alone, don't touch the dead trees at Sossusvlei. If you look at this Instagram feed, every second person is sitting on the tree. Yeah. It's illegal. These are thousands of year old trees that are not going to grow again in that place. And we don't educate that the signage was only recently put up after 3-4 years of not having a proper signage. Same with drones. People think, okay, it's okay to bring drones and use them. But instead of tackling it after the fact, why don't you stop it at the airport and say, if you don't have a permit, you can't bring them in. Keep them in and you can take them back. Because the permit takes 30 days anyway. So if you brought it and you don't have a permit, you're not going to get it. So why don't we do that rather than blaming them, oh, you're using drone? I've seen videos of people using drone illegally in Etosha and they're selling it overseas for money, which could have been easily paid here to Namibia Film Commission, for example, and it could have gone down to the conservancies and communities there for their benefit. So,
yeah. No, definitely. I think I really want to go back to that question in terms of the access for young people, right? Knowing that young people make up the largest demographic in this country. I mean, even in terms of the market for local tours, it's mostly young people. We would see NWR at Gondwana's Black Friday specials. The main people that are discussing are young people on social media and chasing those tickets. With those facts in place, both young people being a demographic, it's a consumer, and the labor input, right? The labor input or the status of businesses. How do we open up this market more, regardless of these challenges that we know with NTP and other institutions and so on? What are you actively doing to be able to say, here's a way that you can enter the market based on merit and based on your passion and ability to be able to get the job done?
Look, I'm not here to promote the forum. I'm here to promote the industry.
Yeah.
In the sense, it's Namibian tourism industry,
Yeah,
and
it's big from
the
an
forum
industry
and the
perspective,
forum is trying as much as it can to push that
Yeah.
by having smart partnerships. There is a project coming out, for example. In fact, today morning we launched a nationwide tour guide database, which is all over, and I think by afternoon we had 30 tour guides registered. Basically, I said, look, before you regulate the tour guides, you need recognizing them. Before you recognize, you need to register, recognize, and then regulate. So it's 3 steps. We haven't even started with the first step yet, register. Nobody has the info. So I said, you know what, let's just push out a form, get all the info, give it to the ministry, and we can use it to now offer recognition to them and what they need, opportunities targeted to them, if it's teaching German or whatever language. And that has started today already. To say it's free. Sign up, fill in your details, your CV, what license you have, and it's out there, and ministry also gets a copy. So they can then do the part of it. Now the next step, how do we help the guides? Once we have the data, what do we do with it? And this is where the challenge comes in. We say, you know what, we can have a walking tour of Namibia, walking tour of Swakopmund by these young graduates who know what the country is about. I can tell you, I've met a few very smart graduates. There's a guy who is level 8 tourism management qualified by NUST Hotel School. NUST is the University of Science. They're one of the biggest hotel schools. And he couldn't find a job. He messaged me, Nrupesh, I just want to come and sit in your office. You teach me something, I'll help you. I want to learn, I don't want to sit home unemployed. I said, okay, come. Next day I said, okay, what do you want to do? I want to help people find jobs. I said, okay. I started a second WhatsApp group for the forum called Namibia Tourism Vacancies and Jobs. Within a day, we had 100 graduates join it. Tourism companies putting their info to say, okay, we are looking. It doesn't take much to start an initiative. Coming back to your question, it's this confidence they need. They don't need to think it's difficult. They need to know government and everybody else is there to push them and support them. It's not about them. It's not about the money. It's not about anything else. It's about support and confidence.
Yeah, I think there's a specific issue that we left unaddressed earlier. It's this idea that our biggest tourism market is Germany. And I mean, you mentioned the 0.9% in terms of the global population.
0.98, it's closer to 1.
Okay.
It is,
okay.
Well, in the end, it's the GDP.
What I was trying to ask is, I lived in Turkey for a few years. I studied there, and I know for sure that Turkey also shares that same characteristic with Namibia, that the biggest tourism market is in Germany, German tourists, and then Russians, of course. But even then, they attract way much bigger. They attract up to 6 million German tourists annually that visit Turkey.
And those will be also young people, to fill that in. I
most
know
of them
people in my age, bunch of that just...
We met in Turkey.
Exactly, just spontaneously.
Something similar. And I'm always wondering, have we really reached the full potential of the amount of tourists we can get from Germany? And knowing the special history and special relationship, knowing that we have that connection, how do we use that connection to attract a larger share of German tourists to be able to expand the industry in Namibia?
Look, I think something that needs to be strategized and looked at differently is the perception here. Do young graduates really want to just target Germany? Because they've learned so much. They've spent so much time online, on other social media platforms, reading the news. Their growing up is a bit different. They don't necessarily just want to target Germany, knowing there are a lot more people in the world. I think it's about marketing Namibia.
But if you can't properly target Germany, then how are you going to succeed with the other markets?
Because it should be the easiest market.
It's actually not that easy because of the language.
They don't speak German, the tour guys?
Only few speak German. It's expensive. Once you do the tour guiding course, it's not that German is not included in there.
Okay, I thought from school or something at least.
No, it's only very few. I think it's only the private schools that teach German.
No, there are state schools that they do teach German. I come from
but I think now the curriculum has changed a bit.
Even with the new curriculum.
It's not predominant, it's not the full language. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
It's not a full language.
You're not getting B2 certification.
Yeah, it's more about, the emphasis has been more other education side of things. And also, everybody learns languages in school, but doesn't really use it later.
No,
It doesn't translate into
I
work.
just thought that once you are good at German in school, that's an incentive then to go into the industry and say, I want to get in touch with Germans.
But industry also needs certification, which is again difficult to get.
Yeah, of course.
I can say I spent 15 years in China and I can speak Chinese, but it doesn't help me actually do Chinese tours because I don't have anything to prove it. And I think it comes down to that where one of the guides was saying, Goethe Institute, for example, charges 8,500 Namibian dollars, 500 euros for certification. They can't afford it.
Yes. Because I could imagine that would be an incentive then also to depart from these large entities which have been long rentier-seeking systems, that you actually have local tour guides speaking with them in German, getting in touch. Not that they need it. I mean, young Germans speak English, but just to make that extra connection.
I really want to challenge that idea, because if we're saying that the largest demographic of even the tourism market in Germany is young people, I mean, doesn't that demographic, I mean, you would surely know, aren't they well versed in English in general already? So is language really a barrier?
I mean,
targeting them?
True, that's a good point, I think, especially since Namibia does also have other, I mean, despite being a very safe place and very interesting in terms of diverse geography, it does, of course, come with a certain, we say, Geschmäckle, a certain a taste that, given colonial past, maybe young people who are sensitive to that don't want to engage in that. And I think young people are not...
So how do we do that? How do we reach those young people?
I think they might not look for the lodge experience, because that is associated maybe some old school...
Does a young German tourist want to be with a local black German-speaking guide or a local German-speaking guide? Let me ask you that.
I think the young Germans actually... Probably once they made the decision to go to Namibia, they will be rather more indifferent than maybe the normal German majority.
Because there is also another whole side to it, which is the guy who is doing the tour guiding. The story of the museum they go to depends on who it is saying to them.
Yes, yes.
So local black Namibian guide story about that museum and history will be different.
Let's not shift the burden of proof. I'm not trying to defend.
No, I'm just saying. There are a lot of other factors. There are other factors that come into play. And these are real issues where I've seen it myself, where one of the tour guides starts talking to the tourists about land issues. I'm like, they don't care. Why are you speaking about land issues to tourists? You're just trying to make it look like it's a reality when it's not. And something that comes with education of the tour guides, this is where regulation is needed. And when you speak of, yes, there are other countries who also speak, there are other countries who speak German who might come here, but Namibia has never marketed, unless you are a German-owned company, you will not have a website that is just in German. People have realized that there are a lot more other markets. If you look at the figures before February last year, the biggest tourist we got was actually Russian. If you look at last 2 months, and the amount of Russian tourists who have been coming here, it's crazy.
Crazy high, you mean?
Crazy high, yeah. And look at Russian Instagram and social media and all. Even though it's banned, you can see there's so many other tourists traveling. And
that might not attract German young right now, but...
That might not attract German young people now, but... Hopefully by the time
yes. But no, I just want to go back, because I think that if we, while you were talking, I was just thinking, what is an incentive for young German to go? I don't agree that it is just that there's a German-speaking thing. I mean, they might just want a good price value, a price model, and is maybe then that what you said, being for example a Russian market, or I mean you're from India, so that's an extremely large market. You have Chinese experience. Could that not lead to a certain disruption that will then also profit the Germans? Because if the price model is focused only on these high-end lodges, is focused only on these old-term, reliable companies who do business, would that not also maybe, through diversification, benefit even the German tourists?
I think the word you use, disruption, that's the most important. One of the ways to change it, for younger Namibian guys to approach a German industry or market, is to open up the pricing. Don't charge commission on everything. They charge commission on booking accommodation, cars, everything. And young tourists are already very aware.
We want transparency.
We want transparency.
Yes.
So if I tell a client and I say, you know what, I can help you book A, B, and C. These are the prices. If you find it cheaper, book it there. My price for my service is X amount.
Yeah.
Why not try that? But nobody wants to do that. Open it up, it's like making a website or something, saying I'm charging you for this and hosting and blah, blah, blah. This is my cost, my time. As a guide, if I'm coming with you for 5 days, this is my fees. And that's disruption because that's new ways of doing things where somebody is charging 50% commission and you're happy taking 5 because you only have one family to feed, not 100 people to manage.
Yes.
But you can't deny these young people an opportunity or space in the industry if they charge 5%. This is what needs to change. That restriction of not letting newcomers charge less. Like you said, if it's 6 million travelers, we have to approach all of them with cheaper prices.
Absolutely.
Why don't we do that?
I like that note, and that's, I think, a good message also to finish up. Let's hope for the disruption. Is it through German tourists? Is it through foreign tourists? Is it maybe also through Namibian tour guides? Disruption might be the way, and looking very forward to continue on that conversation in the next time.
Just before we end, just as a closure, could you speak to us a little bit about conservancies? Because I think they're often one of the stakeholders in the tourism sector in Namibia. And to do them justice on this episode, how has the industry been able to support conservancies which don't normally have the same capacity as a large company and access to all of these networks to ensure that they have access to the market for their own sustainability?
What's the conservancy?
Conservancies are these communities, right? So let's say we have a national park, we have an area where there's enough touristic activity, whether it's wildlife and game that's around there. The local community that lives there then forms a formal entity called the conservancy that elects a board, a chairperson that administers over its finances and its way of its manners of getting revenue for the conservancy. So it's really community organized organizations within touristic sites. I hope that's accurate.
That's accurate. We have
bonus question.
We have government-owned land, state-owned land. We have private land. A lot of communities have been relocated from different areas into private land, farms. These are communities. Then we have conservancies, which also have a lot of communities in them. So any hunting, for example, or any activity that happens in the conservancy, there might be conservancy charges or the profits that can go back to them. And then we have concessions, which are kind of very restricted areas that are only given to one company to run, which is also another issue, but that's concessions. And conservancies and communities are the most vital part of any outreach in Namibia, especially considering that everything is very far away. You might have a village of one school, one small clinic that has nobody sometimes, and few houses. That's a community. The next community might be another 10 kilometers away. That community might need something. How do you get something to them without having for them to now contact the conservancy head who tells somebody else? I've had times when I'm at the lodge and the conservancy or community guys come there and ask for some meat for the school because they might not have enough for the meat.
Soni, since you asked the question, do you think it could be a solution, or why was that?
No. What I specifically wanted to know is what the industry is doing in order to allow for more access for conservancies to this tourism market that we have.
I think it also comes down to the information flow and making sure that the tourists who come know the right story and they support the right conservancies, that they know the money is going there. I can have a website that says, 50% of my profits goes to this community. How do you prove it? There have been cases where conservancies raising funds, or the NGO who is in charge of conservancies raising funds online for a baby rhino that's actually died 1 year ago. But how do you manage all those information? That's where ministry needs to come in and say, okay, we have some regulation in place and information needs to go out to everyone. That if I have a lodge, I know what communities are near me. Things like that.
Interesting, yeah. That's for people who want to check up on that. And I thank you very much for those insights.
Absolutely.
And
It was really
looking
good.
forward to the next conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I hope you have a good time, and see you for the next episode.
That was the take one.
Sorry. Where's the proper summary in terms of what I got on this episode? Against you of US. Yeah. But yesterday, same our channel.
Can he start? Because I just have to remember what we spoke about. There was quite a lot.
You're on ADHD pills. We remember.
The point is more like I just like energy therapy. It's more about like how are you feeling?
Yes. Okay. No, I got it. Let me go. Okay, cool.
Which channel is included?
That's fine.
Hey, Sam,
And action.
So, guys, this was the Tourism Act. Okay. I do it in German, right? Yes. Das war die Folge zum Tourismus in Deutsch Habt ihr verstanden, dass es mich zum Schwitzen gebracht hat? Ich glaube, die Themen geben das wieder. I think we all learned a lot in terms of the need for change. And yeah, Chandri, what was your take on the episode?
And I think it was good episode on speaking about the tourism industry in Namibia and really understanding the different challenges and opportunities. I think our guests did a good job and really laying it out for us that there are institutional challenges, there are challenges of regulation, but there are also opportunities. There's markets to be explored. And I think this episode really encapsulates how we can benefit from this relationship through the tourism market. Yeah. Thank you. I can't remember you're not famous. So from me, Shabba, nobody knows you. Yeah, I'm shooting that at the end. Obvious, thank you.
You mentioned it. I'm not good with this camera take. Wait, let me just...
Don't worry, you don't have to be good at everything you do.
Not yet.
That's fine.
But the content is names, 2 sentences of the summary and outlook for the next, right?
It's from my Namibian holiday, but it's not
Oh, my holiday, my friend, come on, guys, your cat, the old man.
I'm over 40s.
2 months. 3, 1, and...
Freunde, das war's. Tourismus. Sehr viele Punkte. Glaube ich auch ganz viel Motivation, nach Namibia zu reisen. Namibian tourism is vivid. It's a lot of things going on. I think we learned about that. And yeah, check us out. Frederick Julian Tillmans, Afrika für Allmanns. Looking forward for the next episode.
And for me, Sharm Finis, it's been a great one. A little bit.
You're not that unfamous, man. Come on, a little bit more. The first one was good.
Well, it wasn't. I started saying like that. So like, look at it. Oh, okay. Yeah, just do it in the first with a Shandri by.
The TV vibes are strong here. Yeah, very TV-like.
So where's like your friendship? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Well, friendly planned to come as a tourist, but ended up doing a little bit more than that. And I think that's really what this episode encapsulates, right? That Namibian tourism marketing is dynamic, the sector is dynamic with its challenges and opportunities. For me, Shamri, please continue watching, like, subscribe. Thank you.